Good morning. Good morning to all of you. I owe a few words of thanks, honest, sincere words of thanks to Mr. Fallico and to all of the partners of this Euro-Asian Forum. I am honestly, sincerely very glad to be here today. I believe that the quality of the international and national speakers, both today and tomorrow, speakers are very much indicative, also because of the themes that have been chosen, the discussion themes, because they bring about new economic scenarios, political dialogue scenarios between our country, Europe, and the Euro-Asian Economic Union. This is a central theme. I believe that this is a theme which involves not only the political arena, but also the economic arena. And there are a number of well-defined horizons, consolidated horizons that are at stake. This is a constant debate, ongoing confrontation, which may lead to some elements of worry, to a trend to enclose oneself within well-known horizons. But I think that the challenge is exactly an opposite one. We have to accept the challenge of change. We are to be open to change in the relationship we entertain with other countries, because the road leading to change, which is less certain and much more exalting, is the only road that leads to something which will lead to change. So along this road, Italy was always playing a fundamental role, because it's part of its own identity. It's part of its own nature, probably. It's not only something that depends on its own geographical conformation, which makes Italy reach out towards other countries, the south, the north, and east, South Africa, Russia, Eastern Europe, the Middle East, the Far East. So in this country, it's easy to talk about the Silk Road or the Silk Route, recalling how fruitful and profitable were the exchanges, cultural changes, commercial changes in Europe and with China. And let's just think of how many opportunities developed and came true along this pathway. Italy still keeps playing this role, being very much active with respect to Russia, Kazakhstan. Let's consider the many trips made by the Prime Minister in any such countries. In a much more complex and touchy context, our Prime Minister chose, nonetheless, to travel and to make an official trip to Moscow, to Kazakhstan. Last year he went to visit China. So there certainly, definitely is special attention attached by our government to play an important role, which is a bridge role. So we have no interest in raising walls. This is a moment, rather, when in Europe we are trying to sort of enclose us behind safe walls without realizing that erecting walls means that you're missing opportunities. You are not knowing what you leave out of that world. So we are still playing the role of a bridge. So we want to be a bridge. And I believe that it could be interesting to tell other people what's going on in this country. This year and a half, the past year and a half, was and will still be in the next months to come very rich in new changes, important changes, which depend on a new generation. The new generation is the one that has undertaken the challenge and accepted the challenge of bringing about change in Italy. We know that for many years Italy was in a stalemate. Now, instead, there is a new impetus, which is what started the engine, the Italian engine again. So in my own field, the field I am in charge of because of my own governmental responsibilities, that is the one that makes me be very active in the field of institutional reforms, because we believe that the political stability is not only the assumption and the prerequisites that allows us to deal with the many structural reforms that are so much needed in this country, but also is what gives us credibility with other countries. It's the assumption, the requisite to have investments. If you don't have a strong, solid economic policy, you will never attract investments. You will never help those who bet on this country, and will never help them support us in our own new opportunities. This is why we modified the voting law, the electoral law, in order to have an electoral law which is yielding certain results and to give those who are winning the elections the possibility of governing, truly governing this country. We've had 63 governments in less than 70 years of Republican state. This is the 63rd government. We tend to have a new government more or less every year. With the new law, we will have a government for 5 years. So the mandate of each government will be lasting 5 years, which is more or less what happens in Canada. Because in Canada, the country that won the elections will be governing with 54.5% of polls, having received a little bit more than 39% of the votes. In Italy, instead, we will have 55% of the seats, the parliamentary seats, because of the new law. Stability, nonetheless, has to go through the possibility of having the ability to decide to meet the needs of citizens, but in a more rapid way. So we matured so many delays, not only because of our political weaknesses that we have to acknowledge, but also because we have a legislative procedure which is making it difficult to be rapid, effective in adopting decisions and in making them come true. And it's also what makes it so difficult to stand in line with the modern times, which is instead what makes civil society constantly change. So this is why, in the face of new laws in both chambers of the parliament, there are laws that are going to be passed rapidly, swiftly. And we also did simplify our own setup by just reducing the organizational level at territorial level, but also we know that we had to deal with some strategic choices such as energy, the great infrastructures. Only too often in that respect, the level is a supranational level. The economic Euro-Asian Union was born with the objective of having ever more shared territories and terrains and domains on shared choices, important choices. So it is unimaginable that in the face of a European single voice in given aspects in Italy, then we will have to confront ourselves with different legislations that are different one from another, with different realities that are hampering those who want to bring about new economic development and create new jobs. So we would like in this country, this is a country which often is perceived as a beautiful country because of its culture, because this is a place where you live a pleasant life, where it's pleasant to travel and to go as tourists. We would like it to turn into a reality. We want it to become a place where you can make investments. We want to renew the relations that were established in past years, and we want them to turn into investment opportunities. But then we have to become we have to slim down our own bureaucracy for our own citizens, but also for those who are visiting the country and who bet on us. This is why we have adopted and accepted the challenge of changing the public administration. It's unthinkable that in order to obtain a permit, a license, or an authorization for a new working activity, you have to wait indefinite time. You don't know when you are going to get the green light, so to say. So we adopted a safe rule, and if within a given pre-established time the public administration is not replying the way it should, is not answering the way it should, you consider it as accepted. I mean, your request is accepted. Once you've gone past the deadline, no longer there is a way to go back and to take a step back. Obviously, we have to have a strong government, we have to have a strong push towards digitization, and we have to have a strong democratic tool, which is the access to the ultra large bandwidth in order to be connected across the entire state and territory. Then another challenge, which definitely is very important and which has already allowed us to achieve excellent results in the first part, is the reform of civil justice. We know that that's another chapter that brings about lots of difficulties, because justice takes much too long to be resolving its own cases, and by the end of this year we are going to cut by 20% the past trials that have been piling up. So we want to speed up the justice time, and we want to have a public administration which should not be an obstacle, which should not stand in the way, but rather should be a free consultant for the large businesses that come to Italy, that establish themselves in Italy, because we want to have an inland office which is going to stand as a consultant for those who want to develop something here. And we want to provide more clarity, more certainties, in order not to have litigations and disputes or controls which may complicate the life of those who want to establish their own businesses here. We want to allow the possibility of having a new reform in the labor market. We want to reduce taxations because we well know that another big difficulty for those who work in Italy is the heavy taxes that are to be paid. And if you are an investor, if you are creating new job opportunities, this is something that has to be streamlined. We want to invest, we want these people to invest in Italy. So this is a challenge, a very committing challenge. The complex changes that are at stake are going to take place on so many different areas, in so many different areas. But we believe that this is the only way to take a step forward. And the early data of the year 2015 are encouraging as far as we are concerned, because if the International Monetary Fund recently reviewed the estimates of 11 of the 16 main countries at economic level, worldwide countries, the 11 countries where the estimates were upward going were the UK and Italy. So in Italy, exports are growing. There was a slight curbing in the recent months, but with respect to the forecasts of this year, i.e. 3.47%, we now already have acquired 4.7% of that expectation. And thanks to the great opportunities that the Expo represented for Italy. In a few days, we will pass the baton to Kazakhstan, because the next Universal Expo will take place there in Kazakhstan. We also have encouraging data for our own companies and businesses, but we know that this is not enough. We still have a lot to do, and we feel the urgency, we feel the responsibility, and it weighs heavily upon our shoulders. In this country, this is a country where citizens live a longer life, and the reforms we are undertaking will allow us to live a better life, not only a longer life, but a better life, I would say. So this is a country which is not only going to be a beautiful country, which is on the mouth of everyone abroad, but should also be a country, at long last, a country which is allowing a simple life, a simpler life, not made difficult by red tape and bureaucracy. This should be also applicable to the economic relations and commercial relations at economic level with the Euro-Asian Union.